T.D. Jakes tried to touch me at night while I was sleeping, and he said to spend one night with Didi that I would get a lot of money, but I refused.
Do you think, I'm assuming, LGBT community and the black church can coexist?
Absolutely.
Let me push that question, because
why do you think T.D. Jakes was at Puff Daddy's birthday party?
What if I told you that Bishop T.D. Jakes, one of the most prominent and important voices in the contemporary church, didn't stand down willingly? What if behind the smiling sermons and sold-out conferences there was a secret strain? A conflict so deep that it caused him to walk away from the pulpit he created from the ground up.
Proud of you. Don't get it twisted. I'd be proud of you if you were driving for the post office.
Today we're taking back the veil on what truly led to T.D. Jakes' surprising choice to stand down, and trust me, you won't believe who was behind it. For decades, Bishop T.D. Jakes has stood as a giant in both ministry and media, commanding stadiums, bestseller books, blockbuster films, and an empire that has affected millions. From his modest origins in West Virginia to building the Potter's House in Dallas, Texas, Jakes has become a worldwide hero. But in a shocking twist, the spiritual leader recently revealed he would be stepping down from his job as senior pastor, a decision that sent shockwaves across the Christian community. Many felt it was just an issue of age or a natural shift of leadership. But behind the scenes, tales of scandal, internal strife, and even power struggles inside the church have begun to emerge. Some sources believe it wasn't his decision at all, that he was driven out owing to rising pressure both within and beyond the church gates. In this video, we're going deep into the timing, testimony, and tension that accompany this tragic event. You'll learn about the suspected rift with trusted leaders, the financial dealings gone bad, the personal hardships that were kept from the public, and what this implies for the future of the Potter's House. Stick with us, because what we've unearthed could well transform the way you perceive Bishop T.D. Jakes forever. Before we can comprehend why Bishop T.D. Jakes was supposedly compelled to step down, we have to go back, far back, to the beginning. Because the narrative of his collapse doesn't make sense without first knowing the great influence he established and how he became one of the most powerful preachers of our time. Born in 1957 in South Charleston, West Virginia, Thomas Dexter Jakes was reared by a single mother after his father went away. With extremely modest beginnings, he started preaching tiny services in storefront churches. He didn't come from money. He didn't come from a large denomination. What he did have was charm, a profound emotional connection to people's misery, and the uncommon ability to convert scripture into soul-shaking sermons that hit people where they were. By the 1990s, his ministry caught fire. His Woman Thou Art Loosed conference was a breakthrough moment, empowering women, healing trauma, and swiftly gaining national attention. The books followed, then the TV series, the Oprah appearances, the movie, and in 1996, he built the Potter's House in Dallas, a megachurch that expanded to over 30,000 members. It wasn't simply a church, it was a movement. He became known as America's Bishop, not only because of his lectures, but because of his influence in business, Hollywood, and even politics. Presidents sought his wisdom. Celebrities dubbed him their spiritual father. His enterprise includes real estate, television networks, music creation, and worldwide outreach. With that type of reach, who could possibly oppose him?
How you feel about these rumors surrounding, Diddy and T.D. Jakes?
Why would a religious man like himself be at a party which ain't nothing but sin that's going on, bruh?
If Bishop Jakes was at a Diddy party, there could only be two reasons: money or sex. That's all that happens at Diddy parties.
Because people always put their faith in the pastor instead of putting their faith in God.
Well, that's where things becomes fascinating, because with enormous power comes immense pressure. And underlying that beautiful picture was a developing undercurrent of concerns, some financial, some personal, and others profoundly ingrained in the very ethos of the church he founded. Despite all his accomplishments, internal voices started to murmur. Is Bishop Jakes still connected to the people? Was he becoming more of a businessman than a pastor? And as the years passed, those close to him allegedly began to worry if he was losing control of the same ministry he built. As Bishop T.D. Jakes stood on stages throughout the globe, inspiring millions with his distinctive combination of fiery preaching and calm wisdom, very few people could see what was occurring behind the scenes. But insiders started to speak, and what they said depicted a far more difficult picture than the polished image we saw online or on television. Let me tell you something that most fans and followers never knew. The Potter's House was not merely a church. It was a corporate machine. And like any huge organization, there were levels of leadership, staff politics, budgetary choices, and yes, disputes. Sources close to the ministry started murmuring about developing conflicts among the senior echelons. There were older staff members who apparently thought they were being pushed aside as younger, business-minded consultants stepped in. The spiritual leadership that formerly distinguished the church was purportedly turning toward commercial expansion. Sermons starting to seem more like marketing messaging, and pastoral meetings more like corporate strategy sessions. But here's the kicker. The congregation began to notice. Some church members, particularly older ones, started discreetly voicing worry that the Potter's House was losing its spiritual foundation. One former worker reportedly put it this way: "We were praying less and bargaining more. It stopped feeling like church and began feeling like Hollywood." And then came the money issues. Now here is when things really start to heat up. Reports started spreading, usually silently at first, regarding how church monies were being handled. There was no clear charge of theft or mismanagement, but there were worries. Questions concerning large-scale investments, salaries of leadership, and the movement of church-owned assets into corporate activities that weren't obviously spiritual in purpose. Some even started to wonder why the church's financial openness looked more guarded than in past years. One account indicated that even inside the Jakes family, these actions generated tension. He had a vision for growth, but not everyone agreed with how it was developing. They say, then came the generational change. As his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, came to popularity, becoming a sought-after speaker, influencer, and spiritual voice in her own right, many started to worry if Bishop Jakes was quietly preparing to pass over the keys. Sarah was accessible, stylish, and drew a younger population that regarded her as the future of spiritual leadership. But if Sarah was rising, was Bishop Jakes discreetly moving back? Here's where things becomes even more difficult. Some suspected that Bishop Jakes was being prodded, not simply by internal leadership or family, but by outside influences too. Whispers of scandal started appearing online. Some accused him of becoming overly associated with celebrity culture, while others attacked his supposed links to government officials and rich economic elites. He used to be for the people, one critic wrote, but now he's just another affluent preacher flying private. Still, he remained calm, dignified, unbothered, or so it appeared. But behind closed doors, pressure was rising. The type of pressure that doesn't only come from media headlines, it comes from inside. So what actually pushed his hand? What moment did the guy famed for calm and serenity suddenly begin preparing his exit? This is where everything changes. For decades, Bishop T.D. Jakes carried the Potter's House on his back, developing it into one of the most prominent ministries in the world. But even giants stumble, and the reality is no matter how strong someone seems on stage, they are still human behind the scenes. Let me take you behind the curtain. According to those close to the group, 2023 and 2024 were extremely stressful years for Bishop Jakes. While he was still speaking impressive sermons and producing books, many saw an apparent difference. His energy looked decreased. His lectures, although still engaging, had an undertone of thought, even exhaustion. Some began to wonder, was Bishop Jakes exhausted? Was he discreetly waging a struggle the public couldn't see? Well, here's what many sources have indicated. It wasn't just one factor that drove him toward stepping down. It was a perfect storm. First, there were health issues. Though not officially acknowledged, those close to the family said that Jakes had began to encounter significant health concerns. Whispers of high blood pressure, tiredness, and even a possible stress event made their way among trusted circles. One source observed, "There were moments where he just couldn't keep up the pace. He's been going hard for 30+ years. Eventually, the body says, 'Enough.'" Then came the public pressure. Social media has become a minefield for public personalities, and even someone with the respect of Bishop Jakes wasn't immune. Accusations began spreading like wildfire. Some believed he had gotten too worldly. Others attacked his connection in Hollywood circles, arguing that he had watered down the gospel for popular appeal. And when a couple of his celebrity contacts came under examination, that criticism just became louder. You won't believe this, but in one viral post that gained over 100,000 views, someone wrote, "T.D. Jakes ceased being a pastor and became a businessman. The spirit departed the building a long time ago. Whether it was fair, their remarks burned." They weren't simply trolls online. These were former church members, once devoted, now disillusioned. But the most severe blow may have come from inside his own spiritual group. There were unverified rumors of internal dissent. Other high-profile pastors challenging Jakes' tactics, his opulent lifestyle, his shifting theology. The Christian community may be both a source of great support and harsh criticism. And when some previous ministry partners started to distance themselves or stop asking him to conferences, it became evident something had altered. Even his connection with his faithful church was starting to show strain. Some attendees privately questioned the church's direction. Others felt distant, as if the core of the Potter's home had shifted, not vanished, but transformed. Now, here's the weirdest part. Behind the scenes, a very serious and very deliberate discourse was already going place. Not only about stepping down, but about legacy, about what comes next. According to one source, this wasn't a spontaneous departure. This was a long time coming. They were only waiting for the appropriate moment to depict it as a graceful withdrawal, not a forced retreat. And remember Sarah Jakes Roberts? There were significant evidence that this generational change was not merely being planned, it was being manufactured. Events started showcasing her more. She was speaking on greater venues, taking on bolder ideas, and even driving efforts that formerly would have fallen to her father. The torch wasn't simply being passed, it was being transmitted by purpose. But don't go anyplace yet, because in the following chapter, we get to the moment everyone's been talking about. The formal announcement, how it went down, and what Bishop Jakes eventually stated out loud about why he was stepping away. This is when it becomes real. After months, perhaps years, of empoiglub murmurs, rumors, and behind-the-scenes scheming, Bishop T.D. Jakes finally accomplished what millions had been awaiting. He spoke out. It was a Sunday like no other at the Potter's home. Thousands crowded the sanctuary, while tens of thousands more tuned on online. The atmosphere was saturated with emotion. You could know something was approaching. The music, the prayers, the pacing, everything led to that one time. And as Bishop Jakes entered the stage, you could see it on his face. This wasn't simply another sermon. This was the moment of truth. Here's what he said and what he didn't say. In a calm but emotional tone, Jake began by thanking his congregation for staying with him for over 30 years. He talked about the extraordinary journey from the modest beginnings of his ministry in West Virginia to becoming the worldwide leader he is today. He spoke about the challenges, the sacrifices, the wins, and the storms. But then his voice transformed, more serious, more thoughtful. There comes a point, he added, when every leader must know when to move away, not because they are done, but because the next chapter deserves a fresh voice. And just like that, the room altered. He didn't mention controversy. He didn't discuss blowback. He didn't even hint to the issue. But what he did do, skillfully, was accept that his season in the pulpit as the senior pastor was drawing to a conclusion. But here's where it gets fascinating. Instead of portraying it as a retirement or an escape from duty, Jakes flipped the narrative. He made it about legacy. He answered, "I don't want to leave a memorial. I want to leave a movement." He talks strongly about empowering the next generation of leaders, notably his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts. With pride, he characterized her as having the fire, the heart, and the anointing to carry the flame forward. And for many, it was the unofficial transfer. Sarah, the next chapter of the Potter's home. But here's the bit most folks missed. In a delicate, almost veiled manner, Jakes referred to the weight he's been bearing. He replied, "There are weights you bear in quiet, not because you're frightened, but because the people you lead need your strength, not your struggle." Those remarks hurt deeply. They verified what many suspected. Bishop Jakes has been facing secret battles for years, spiritually, physically, emotionally. And this announcement wasn't about resigning. It was about choosing calm over pressure. And if you were paying closely, you also got his not-so-subtle warning to critics and haters. With brazen assurance, he asserted, "People will speak, they'll say what they want to say, but they weren't there when God called me, and they won't be there when he calls me home." Mic drop moment. That phrase drove social media into a frenzy. Clips went viral. Bloggers examined every word. Supporters commended him for his openness and kindness. And if critics termed it damage control. But either way, everyone was talking. And guess what? That's precisely what he wanted. This wasn't simply a resignation. It was a carefully timed moment to control the narrative, to depart on his terms, not as a man destroyed by scandal, but as a leader choosing succession above self-preservation. But before you think the tale stops here, wait until you hear what occurred next. Now, here is when the narrative takes a dramatic turn. And believe me, you won't want to miss this. The very next day, when Bishop T.D. Jakes delivered his impassioned revelation, the globe responded like a tidal wave. News sources, gossip blogs, Christian forums, and social media platforms burst with thoughts, speculations, and tributes. Some headlines lauded him. Bishop Jakes leaves with elegance, a legacy of knowledge and strength. From the pulpit to a global stage, T.D. Jakes redefines leadership. But some not so nice? Did Bishop Jakes step down, or was he forced out? Church politics and secret intrigue behind Jakes' unexpected resignation? Let's break it all down. A house split, supporters versus doubters. Supporters swarmed social media with poignant words and videos honoring Bishop Jakes for his decades of service. Celebrities like Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, and Steve Harvey publicly expressed condolences, calling him a spiritual father to a generation, and complimenting his ability to lead with dignity throughout difficulty. Church members reported how Jakes' teachings helped them through sadness, sorrow, divorce, or poverty. Hashtags such "Thank You Bishop Jakes," "Ashok Legacy Leader," and "Dark Jakes Era" were trending within hours. But then came the naysayers. Critics posed serious questions. Was there internal pressure from church board members? Did his expanding interest on cinema, real estate, and secular activities provoke tension with church elders? Was his riches becoming too conspicuous and too problematic for a spiritual leader? And here's the bit no one wants to confess. Many insiders thought Jakes was steadily being pushed out. Behind closed doors, rumors had already started flowing, allegedly. Certain members of the leadership team were unhappy with the rising power of Sarah Jakes Roberts, particularly when her Woman Evolve campaign began getting tremendous popularity internationally. Some even believed she was altering the culture of the church, making it more emotional, more feminine, and less conventional. But it wasn't just about his daughter. Sources close to the church alleged that Bishop Jakes had problems about cash. There were rumors about budget difficulties, resource allocation, and doubts about whether too much money was being diverted into corporate initiatives rather than church activity. And then came the elephant in the room. T.D. Jakes' rising dominion beyond the church boundaries. From book agreements to production firms, real estate ventures to worldwide conferences, some suspected he was spending more time in boardrooms than in prayer rooms. He became more of a CEO than a shepherd, one unidentified source allegedly stated. That comment alone sent shockwaves across the Christian community. So was this truly a retirement or a discreet removal? This is when it gets interesting. Church sources believe that a high-level, closed-door meeting took held only weeks before the announcement. Senior elders, significant benefactors, and even attorneys were purportedly present. Some feel that the decision for Jakes to stand down came from mutual agreement, although not totally freely. He still had respect, still had authority, but the internal pressure was becoming too loud to ignore. And rather than let things evolve into a controversy, he chose the option of graceful exit. But here's the weirdest part. The succession strategy was already in action before the announcement. You won't believe how strategic this was. Behind the scenes, Sarah Jakes Roberts had already been handed more speaking engagements, more promotional authority, and more leadership duties. The church's marketing campaign started promoting her more than Bishop Jakes himself. And in the weeks preceding up to the announcement, she spoke on numerous Sundays in a row, preparing the audience for what was coming. Whether this was Jakes' goal all along, or the church board's effort to redefine its future, one thing is apparent: destiny took an unexpected turn. As of today, Sarah Jakes Roberts is positioned to assume the mantle, a younger, contemporary, socially aware voice that connects powerfully with millennials and Gen Z. But not everyone in the church is ready for this transformation. Some veteran members feel abandoned, some are pleased, but everyone is watching. In our next and last chapter, we'll dig into the big question: what happens now? Can Sarah Jakes Roberts fill her father's shoes, or will the heritage of the Potter's house suffer its largest threat yet? This is when it all comes to a head. The Potter's House, a large worldwide ministry that T.D. Jakes created from the ground up, is now confronting a key time in its history. With the untimely departure of T.D. Jakes, the weight of duty has now fallen onto the shoulders of his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts. The issue on everyone's mind is, can she actually inherit the legacy her father left behind? As Sarah Jakes Roberts prepares to formally assume the reins, the world is watching and everyone has an opinion. The first challenge is stepping into big shoes, and everyone has an opinion. The first problem is stepping into huge shoes. Sarah Jakes Roberts has always been considered as a forceful voice in her own right. From her best-selling books to her revolutionary Woman Evolve conferences, she's already established herself to be a prominent person in Christian circles. But taking into the job of senior pastor at the Potter's home is no minor accomplishment. The church's legacy was founded by her father, a man who became a household figure, whose teachings reached millions worldwide, and whose influence spread across continents.